The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.
Welcome back to Bite by Bite. He is the CEO of the Heart of Alabama Food Bank, HAFB.org, and hashtag HAFB as well on social media platforms. Today we're talking about food quality perspectives. Please explain yourself, sir.
Yeah, and this is it's a sensitive issue with a lot of people. So I'll give you a scenario. You go into the typical grocery store, it's going to have best if purchased by date on it. And we used to call those expiration dates. I think even years ago it had expiration date on it. And that's carried over. And that becomes problematic in food banking because it gets into our heads that if we don't eat this food by this certain date, then something's wrong with it and it's not good. I mean, my wife is somebody who thinks at midnight on the expiration date that milk goes out, and I've seen her pour half a gallon of milk out saying, no, this milk's expired. It says it right here on the thing. And so it's one of the barriers that we have in overcoming. So we've established some college campuses to deal with campus hunger. We have reached out with vet hunger. And so sometimes we prepare boxes. And so when people go in and they pull out, let's just say a can of green beans or a can of tuna, and it may say best if used by, and it's 2 months old. And they go, oh, the food bank just gives out expired food. In other words, the thinking is our whole paradigm is just taking food that nobody else wants and then giving it to poor people, to people who need help. And let me tell you, first of all, I would never be involved in that because it is it is just projecting a lack of dignity on people to think, oh, well, you're poor, you're hungry, you should be glad to eat whatever I put in front of you. And that just bothers me as how you treat people. So the USDA has put out very clear guidelines. It's just so tough to get people to understand this. So when Walmart purchases food and it says best if used by, what in essence that manufacturer is saying is that when you open up this can of black-eyed peas, let's say, if you do it before that date, you're practically guaranteed to get the same texture, color. You're going to get the same product every time you open it up, and so you already know what you're getting. It's going to look just like it does on the can, or it's supposed to.
Yeah.
What begins to happen is once you go past there, it is not a food safety issue. The USDA comes out with a chart, and it governs everything we do across the board in terms of food safety and extending the life of food. And what they say is, like with a typical can of green beans, it can go all the way to 18 months past the best if used by date. Now, if you open up a can of green beans that's a year past, it may be absolutely no different, but it may be possible that there's, maybe begins to be some lessening of color. Maybe they're not quite as green as they were or something along those lines, but it is 100% not a food safety issue. That's what the USDA does, is guide food banks to say, once it gets past this date, you have to throw it away. And I will tell you, we go to sometimes food drives, and like here at the Heart of Alabama Food Bank, our county fair does a special night where you get in for $1 if you bring a food item. And lots of people bring bags. They'll bring 4, 5, 6 cans, and sometimes people will toss them over. Well, if it dents that can or dents another can, we go through every one of those cans, and any dent whatsoever, we throw it away because that can cause botulism. But every one of those cans is gone through. So we want people to know, first of all, that we treat food safety. And I'm not just talking about Heart of Alabama. This is within our DNA in the food banking system, to treat food safety with the utmost of importance. And everything we do is guided by a governing agency whether it might be, if it's something just local, you're following USDA guidelines, but it might be, we get inspected by the Alabama Department of Agriculture, does spot inspections at least semi-annually. And we don't know they're coming, they just pop in. Every 2 years, we have to get a national certification from AIB, which is the Institute of Bakeries, which is the one that kind of governs all that for food safety. And again, a lot of people sometimes, you can tell when a loaf of bread, it may not be moldy,
sure, but
you're like, oh, this is getting hard.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want sandwich bread that's hard. But you just can't tell that on other kind of foods. So you have to have strict guidelines that go along. And along that line, I'll throw in something else too that people may not know. It's something we battle. So the USDA says if you get food well within its best if used by date and you freeze it, it really doesn't matter how long it's frozen for. So it could be a year and a half, as long as you froze it before the best if used by date and it thaws out, it should be virtually as it was. Now, what we have to guard against is, like when we're cleaning out our freezer and we bring food out, there's a time limit. It can only sit out. So you don't want it to thaw and then refreeze it. That's a safety issue. That's a no-no. We have people come in and sometimes we get a whole bunch of assorted meat, like from Walmart and things like that. And so we put together assorted meat boxes. But every package is inspected. If we see anything with freezer burn on it, if we see any discoloration, if we see a package that has been perforated, if we see anything that looks, the instruction is, if you're not 100% sure, throw it away. We would rather have the waste than risk somebody getting sick. So it's really an educational problem, helping people learn that because what they're seeing with their eyes doesn't translate into being unsafe.
Yeah.
One more thing I'll just throw out there and then see, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it as a consumer. But peanut butter is something that the food bank came along. I mean, the USDA came along and said, we're going to extend peanut butter for 2 years past the best of use by date. So we had some peanut butter one time and we sent it out to our agencies that had been, it had just barely gone past the best of use by date. But the oil had collected at the top because, peanut butter's full of oil. So that peanut oil had done at the top. And of course, if you open it up, all you do is stir it all back up in there together. But it looked like, oh, this is disgusting. So people were calling, complaining, you're giving us bad peanut butter. And again, it was the visual and the visual expectation, but nothing is wrong. But people hear that and they go, oh, the food bank, that's the food bank. They're taking food that should be thrown away and repurposing it, and that is 100% not the case.
I will say this, coming from a family that never threw anything away. We had the deep freezer. We'd eat stuff that is 3, 4, 5 years later. Even freezer burn, my mom would cut it off. I used to go home and my mom would serve us toast, and there'd be holes in the toast, and that's where she cut the green part out before she put it in the toaster, because it's toasted. It's going to be hard anyway, so she toasted. But it still works to this day. She'd always say, smell it. If it doesn't smell right, throw it away. But if it smells okay.
And today, if we get a big block of cheese, I know tons of people, if it got a little moldy piece, they cut that piece away.
Sure.
Because the rest of the cheese is fine. So it doesn't bother some people. But I do get people are sensitive to that. Things have happened in the past. And sometimes if you're poor and people have treated you differently, maybe you're just expecting the worst in people, like, oh, I'm getting this. And it's not that it's good. They're just giving it to me because they think I ought to be lucky to have it. I'll tell you, one of the challenges for us is, even though we get lots of donated food and some from the USDA, we have to purchase, for us to be able to meet our goals, about $1.5 million worth of food every year, in addition to what we have to be able to meet the need. But lots of times, if we're doing a college pantry and the college kids go, we're not eating expired food. So then we have to, if we want to have that college pantry, we have to order stuff that comes in almost like a Walmart, where it has plenty of best if you, way before the best if used by date. And to overcome that barrier, sometimes we just have to purchase food like that, and it puts a burden on our financial system that maybe could be better utilized somewhere else, but just trying to overcome that barrier actually cost us money in the long run.
Heart of Alabama Food Bank. He is Michael Coleman, the CEO, HAFB.org and HAFB, hashtag it, and you can find all the details. This is Bite by Bite. Thank you.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio.